Seneca has this great line. He says, we can't choose our parents, but we can choose whose children we would like to be. And she basically chooses
right
which side of the family tree she's going to be descended from, you know, like, and so it doesn't really matter where you come from or what you did or what your parents did. You have this ability to like sort of choose whose footsteps you're going to follow in.
yeah.
And
I love that idea.
Yeah.
So where do you see grace with Stoicism?
I mean, one of the things Marcus Aurelius talks about a lot is this idea of revenge. And, you know, he says the best revenge is to not be like that. The sort of penultimate moment in his life. So he's ill and near death. And his most trusted general, basically sensing that the emperor was weak, names himself emperor. So he starts a palace coup. And Marcus is not as sick as they thought, and he recovers. And so now he's faced with this terrible dilemma. There can't be two emperors, and this person has put everything into danger and turmoil. And so, I mean, we know what his predecessors would have done in this situation. Hadrian comes to power and just liquidates, you know, and Marcus decides not to do that. He can't ignore it. He can't just let this happen, but he decides, he says, this is an opportunity. He says, we can teach future generations there's a way to even deal with civil wars, which I just think is this amazing sort of way of thinking about it. And they go to restore order, and ultimately the other general, this guy named Avidius Cassius, is struck down by an assassin, and they bring Marcus Aurelius' head, and they think the emperor is going to be happy and reward them, and he breaks down in tears because they've stolen from him the opportunity for clemency. And so he sends this message to the Senate, and he says, not a single person is to be put to death for this rebellion. He says, do not stain my reign in blood. Let it never happen. And just this idea, like when Marcus really says the obstacle is the way,
yeah,
I think people have taken that, because that's how I wrote the first book. They've taken the obstacle as the way to mean, here's how you get ahead in business. Here's how you deal with these little disadvantages. You turn them into springboards. And that is part of it. But that famous passage in Meditations where he says, you know, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes way. He's talking about other people. He's talking about frustrating, obnoxious, dishonest, evil people. He's saying that he says bad people are an opportunity to practice virtue. And so I think, to me, that's grace is only possible if there is first the thing you don't want to happen. You know, like if everyone was wonderful to each other and everything went perfectly, there would be no opportunity for grace. And so I think Stoicism would say that these things that you don't want to happen, these things that shouldn't happen, these things that are unfair to happen, these awful, dark, terrible things that human beings do to each other, the only good thing about them is who we can be in response to them. If we don't let them destroy our character and make us like the people that did the thing.
So it comes down to choices, as
Yes.
you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting. There's a man here, Danny Abdullah. He had 3 of his children and one of his nieces were out walking at night, and there was a driver who was intoxicated, I think drunk as well, these kids just went out they were all a bunch of primary school age kids. They went out to get an ice cream, and this driver ran them over and killed them all. And they decided quite quickly to forgive that guy. There was absolutely no reason to do that.
Yeah.
There'd been an incident before, not long before, in the western suburbs of Sydney, where a woman was dropping her kids at school, and she leaned down to get a water bottle, and then got from in the car and got the accelerator brake confused and went into the kindergarten and killed 2 children. And she was absolutely just bereft.
Sure.
And yet got a lot of attack from the school community. And there's this footage of one of the parents one of the children who was killed, and they're in the hearse, and his little green coffin is in the back, and the father has set up the camera on the dashboard and is saying, I don't want any hostility to this woman. She's a widow. She's got all these kids on her own. She's got kids at the school. They've got developmental disabilities. I want you to all know we forgive her. And it was such a touching thing,
Sure.
and especially because we know that when the trial then came, the daughter testified and says, my mother wishes every day it was her that had gone, like that she had to live with this incredible burden.
Sure.
But when we look at the Abdullah family, it was like a guy that was being completely reckless and was fully responsible for what happened. But Danny, the father, says he has to get up every morning and make that decision. You don't just go, okay, we're all good now, you're fine.
Right.
It's still something that will torture you and you'll wrestle with, but you have to keep choosing to be the person that will forgive.
When it's so easy to be glib about it, but I think the idea is like, does this person also get to steal your life from you?
Exactly.
And that's the Stoics would say, you don't control this horrendous tragedy that happened. You have no say over that, but you have some say over who you are today. And I like the idea of seeing it as this thing you do day to day. There's no magical insight or meditation or psychedelic you can take that could strip you from the anger and the grief and the pain that you feel. But
I want some if you find it, though.
Yeah. But you can choose in individual moments to have the moment or not have the moment. And that's the one part we control.
Yeah, exactly.